Chris, you are here, right? Oh, yep, there you are. Excellent.
I can even unmute myself.
Excellent. I was working on getting the last set of slides. That's what I was doing. I knew I was doing something hopefully productive. Just give me a second. There it is. All right, so while I'm giving you all another minute or two to get your bearings and everybody to get connected, I am going to need, Chris, and I would like desperately to have a minute taker. So, do we have any volunteers?
Can you hear me? This is Bill.
This is Bill. Yes, Bill, I can hear you.
I can do part of it, and then I'll be talking. So,
Right. Do we have a second person who's willing to help Bill? I don't think it's going to be long, and I don't think it's going to be too onerous. So it.
This is Jess.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jess. Did you volunteer?
I can help out.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you, Jess.
Somewhere convenient for me.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that again, Jess?
Sure. Is the link for the notes somewhere convenient? Oh, it's off of the agenda, isn't it? I can do that.
Yeah, it's off the data tracker page. Yeah. I remember this last time my laptop, when I start running Meet Echo and Gather, it starts sounding like an airplane about to take off my desk. So hopefully nothing will crash. Yeah, hopefully Dave's not driving, or maybe his wife is driving. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and get started. And so this is the Sacm working group meeting. We welcome to the first session of the IETF. The first couple of creative slides with pictures are all thanks to Chris, because I'm no longer creative, I think. But we are not in San Francisco. We are all virtually at our desks all over the world. So welcome to IETF 111 and to the Sacm working group. As a reminder, this is our note well in little tiny font. So you're going to look it up if you need it. And as a reminder, these processes apply to all IETF meetings. And by participating in this meeting, you are agreeing to comply with these. This is our agenda for the day. We have note takers for, so first of all, is there any agenda bashing? Do we have anything to add? I just read the chat. So there's no agenda bashing. We have minute takers. We can all see the Jabber rooms. I don't think we really need a Jabber scribe in this format. And with that, the first agenda item I think is pretty. I think it basically got resolved over email earlier today. But Chris, do you want to talk about the status of the code switch?
It's going to move forward. Karen, you're right, to get resolved earlier today over email, all of the kind of nits and everything else. The update looks good. So both Roman gave it a review, I gave it a review. I updated the shepherding doc, that's submitted. So that means that Roman is going to bring it forward for to IESG for its final blessing.
Excellent. So then, are there any questions or comments on the status of CoSWID? Thank you to the editors for addressing all of Roman's comments, and we'll be moving that document on to the next stage. The next document is the architecture document, and Bill is going to talk about that. Bill, do you want to share the slides, or would you like me to do that?
If you have them up and ready, then go for it.
Well, ready is a little bit optimistic, but yes.
Ready enough?
Ready enough, yes. Yeah. 15 clicks later, there you go.
There it is. There we are. All right. Yeah, next one. So we did a number of updates. It looks like about one a month. There was two in June there that were actually on the same day, I feel like. So did a couple of updates there, and there were a couple of new issues that were opened. I will say that we haven't necessarily been hugely using the issues features in GitHub, but we did close a number that were there, or got rid of a few that were pretty old that got replaced. So we can go to the next slide. The first update in March just kept the draft alive, so it didn't expire. No real work on that one. We can go to the next one. A few enhancements, especially to the overview section, kind of changed a little bit of words around there for producers and consumers, and kind of defined what those different capabilities, interactions were going to be. We added the concept of a manager component, and kind of then had to revise all the diagrams to include that in there. And that's sort of the kind of the administrative kind of management of the ecosystem there. Next slide. So May, kind of continued down the path with defining the role of the manager and its interactions. Put in an operation for generic status notifications. That's basically just a publish subscribe, where any component can either publish or subscribe to receive, kind of just generic status updates on things that are going on. We changed the name of component onboarding to component registration. Not really that big of a deal. Talked a little bit about payloads and payload categorization, and really what this came from was the document was reading a little bit leaning towards one particular flavor of an integration service, and we didn't want to, I guess, have that sort of lean or push towards particular types of technology. So we kind of defined the different types of payloads, and I guess the two categories of payloads. That's topic-centric and payload-centric. Topic-centric means that the naming conventions of the topic are really the label that's attached to the payload. Not literally attached, but it's associated with that payload. The integration service then matches that against the known subscription. So the topic naming and the topic naming convention provides more of a deterministic purpose. So that way one can discern from the topic name what the intent of the payloads are, and the different types of payloads that would be published to those topics. Message or payload categorization that's payload centric. The only technology that I could think of, or that's made it, put in as an example in the draft, is XMPP, which has actually a finite number of payload types. So it has different, a message, an information query, and a presence, and like those are the only 3 types of payloads that you can have. And then what's inside the payload actually defines the actual operations that will happen on that payload. So if it's an information query with a collect instruction, then the payload there is defining what happens when that message is received by another component. Hopefully that made a little bit of sense. We also added a couple of different health operations over the administrative interface. That's basically the from the manager directly to each individual component are the administrative interfaces, and that's the health check and heartbeat. Basically, those just sort of are different based on who initiates the actual operation. So the health check is the manager reaching out to make sure that the components that it knows about are still alive, and the heartbeat are the components actually publishing back to the manager that that they are still alive. Next slide. So June, we added a terminology section, and Adam did a number of updates to that to make sure that we've got some good terminology in there. Russ Warren from the Open Cybersecurity Alliance, who's kind of in charge of a lot of the architectural components that are in architectural meetings and designs that are going on over there at the OCA, did a review of the document, provided a number of comments that we put into some of those issues that we then resolved, fairly quickly after his comments. So that's pretty much why we ended up with two revisions really quickly there in June. Took a shot in the dark about capabilities in the IANA sections, about kind of naming particular types of capabilities and things of that nature. So I'm not married to anything that's in that section right now. So, and like I said, I've never had to do that before. So yeah, shot in the dark. Last update is on the next slide. This is lucky number 13. We fully kind of wrote out the operational section for ad hoc collection, which is basically from a Sacm producer, in this case the manager, initiating the collection activities, distributing message to the orchestrator. The orchestrator can then massage the information to the specific posture collection service. Posture collection service goes off and does its collection, publishes the collected posture attributes to the repository interface, and also includes some definitions in there of where all the different status notifications can take place. All right, and then moving on to the fun stuff is the next slide. So coming out of some of the meetings with the OCA and kind of the lack of sort of work that was being done through the SCAP endpoint data collection groups, and that sort of stuff was supposed to be brought into the OCA. That work never really sort of transitioned into that, and the meetings just sort of went away, and a lot of the SCAP people weren't showing up at the OCA meetings or whatnot. So we kind of came in and adjusted a little bit to have the Sacm architecture sort of fill that void, since the SCAP can be considered basically an instantiation of the Sacm architecture. We're pretty good there. We had some discussions within the OCA and between CIS and some of the DoD folks in the room to kind of flesh out an idea to build a prototype, and we're calling that PACE, the Posture Attribute Collection and Evaluation. Some shout outs there to Mike, who's here on the phone, and Jess, and all of the DoD folks who are working really hard. We just had a meeting on some stuff earlier today, and are making really great progress on developing what will likely become a working prototype for a number of the different workflows defined in the Sacm architecture, kind of using OpenC2 as well, and then OpenDXL as the integration service. So we're kind of getting into the depths of sequence diagrams and designing, and then divvying up the work to see like what pieces that have already been developed from OpenC2 that we can use as the different components. So it's actually been really great progress, and you know, I'm pretty excited about the work that we're getting done there. And then that just moves on to the last slide. There is the proposed direction. Again, we've got a GitHub for the PACE prototype development. We're still kind of evangelizing all of that in the Sacm architecture within the OCA. And then the bullets for the continuation of draft work, the different types of collection, all of the different evaluation flavors. These are all the sort of operational descriptions that are at the sort of tail end of the draft, and actually getting into the nitty-gritty of information and data models, and then finally filling in all of those IANA considerations and security considerations. And again, since I've not had to write any of those before, anybody who would be willing to help on any of those sections would be greatly appreciated. And I think that's it.
Okay. Hank, I see you. I was just getting ready to ask if anybody had any questions, but I see you're already in the queue. So go for it, Hank.
Why was there an uh-oh?
No reason. Because I was really worried about what stuffed animals would be behind you.
Oh, yeah. Well, let me do the night horror into the view. That's the best. These are borrowed by my kids. So they supply me with plush animals. I think you can call them animals. Some of them. Hi, everybody. Nice to almost see you again. First of all, wow. The pace you're going in is great. And when you are talking about continuing draft, also IT work here, like flavors of collection, periodic, event-based, observational, that triggers some reflexes, because we're doing network subscription models for RATs, and they basically use Yang Push, and they have all of these. So if you need help, I said that before, I know. That I will have time. Again, that was of course a naive idea, but if there's enough synergy in it, and this seems to be the case here with your flavor for collections and the information and data models, of course, and also the considerations, which I've wrote 900 lines of IANA considerations in the last week. So I can help you there. That is not a problem, actually, in the next iteration. And that is, and this is on record, right? I promise that. So I can commit to at least monthly meetings until the next IETF, where we can schedule, for example, small design team meetings with a Z and not an S, so it's an official one, and we don't have to register it. And if you want to spec something out, assign some homework, and you need some stuff done in a GitHub thingy, I'm there, because the RADS architecture is now good and done, and I took up new work, but there's a little bit left over time here, and I can spare that for you.
Awesome.
I want to spare that.
I'm also attending probably most, if not all, of the RADS meetings this week as well, because it has some applicability to other things that I have that are not necessarily strictly work related, but partially work related. So yeah, I'd be happy to chat more and do some more stuff as it relates to RADS and as it relates to the other sections.
So the best way to reel me in is to schedule a monthly where we can do stuff. So
Okay.
if that is if it's a perceivable option, then maybe we should do that, because then I really can get active, because I see something coming up in my schedule, and then things happen.
If that gets put into the notes, then he says he promised. Okay, it's in the notes. I see it listed in the notes. So
Also,
you're on the hook.
tied to a condition with meetings, please.
Monthly meeting. Got it. Monthly meeting.
Yeah, and then we're in.
Michael, I think you're next.
Yeah, could you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hey, thanks, Karen. Since I got called out on the slide, I figured I should jump on the mic and just +1 it, and say thanks to Bill for kind of putting this up there and talking to it. And Hank, thanks for offering. Since now it's in the notes, I guess we'll keep you to it. The pace work is kind of just kicked off, but we've already been driving down in the right direction, I think. So any way I can help as well, Bill, in defining some of this through the Sacm draft, is just let me know.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Bill, you indicated what's not in here is like a rough timeline of what you're thinking of. So do you all have a sense of how close you are to being done, or what your next steps are? Like the timeline would be good.
Yeah, I'm hopeful we can kind of at a minimum, keep the cadence of updates that we've got going. I know one a month is 3 more updates. So I know that from a draft writing perspective, Adam and I meet every week to talk about it, and just to kind of give an idea of where to go on that particular day. Again, if we can kind of, I think once I get on a roll of the other, I'll call them again flavors of collection. The same types of things flow for evaluation. So describing them, I don't think will take all of that much time. It's more really getting down into nitty-gritties of information and data models that I think will probably take the most time. I'd like to, at a minimum, if there's something that, if there's a way to, if you want to set a deadline on me for any of those 4 bullets, then we can feel free to do that, and I will do all I can to fill in those sections by that deadline.
So can I want to interject a little bit in that I would like to minimize risk to progress. So anything that you think will just completely grind you to a halt and wrap you around the axle should not be on the top of the list.
Yeah,
that'll be getting it down deeper into the info and data models. So if I can snag some more of Adam's time on that, or if that's something that other folks who have already volunteered to give their time, Hank, to help out with, then that would lessen the blockers.
I wasn't specifically looking for imposing a deadline on you, Bill, beyond the one that Roman has sort of already set for us.
Which was like by the next meeting, right?
Yeah. I think it's like October is when he wanted something done. It's in the next slide of the chair slide. I think it's October is working group last call, maybe.
Okay.
That's the marker.
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
We'll work
I
to
looked
that.
at it earlier today and I already forgot. So, so I just really wanted to get a sense of where you all thought you were. And
think-
so
I think
I'm not going to.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say that we're making good progress. So I think that that's a fair deadline, and we'll push for that date.
Okay. Let's see. Any other questions for them? I assume you guys are ready to. I mean, you would take feedback on any of these drafts, right? Like any of your iterations. You're ready
Yeah,
for the
100%.
working group to be reviewing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, please do. Anything would be good, especially for folks who have kind of, I guess, gone through the common things that are seen in the overall review processes and stuff like that. If we're just writing things poorly, please let me know.
Okay. All right. Any more questions or comments on this document? Excellent. Thank you guys both. This is really good progress on this. So, next on our agenda is Torless. Did you want me to do the slides, or are you going to do them?
Hello?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Did you want me to do the slides, or are you going to do them?
Slides, that would be great.
Oh, that would be great. Okay, I will do that then. Yes, I do want to share my screen. I want to share these. Okay, there you go.
Yep, next slide, please. Right, so Anima Working Group, the Autonomic Networking Integrated Model and Approach Working Group develops and maintains specification and documentation for interoperable protocols and procedures for secure automated network management and control of professionally managed networks. So that's our charter. That sounds to me like it should be a good fit of an adjacency with Sacm on the goals and also promoting Anima as a platform for what to me looks in Sacm like a higher layer and more refined work on that. And so to that extent, I think if people remember, after Anima was formed, we did consult with Sacm, and we went as the editors of many of the documents to Sacm for quite a few meetings. And then we went away and producing our charter round 1 RFCs and only recently our charter round 2. So now with our charter round 1 finished after IETF 110, I felt it was a good time to circle back to Sacm, updating on what we did and encourage further collaboration and input from the Sacm community on the Anima work. So next slide. So as a reminder, Anima was created as an IETF working group out of the work done in NMRG with RFC 75, 75, and 76. And that architecture can be seen high level on the right-hand slide. So it's all about distributed or decentralized autonomic agents to do network management OEM functions. And was recognized that to be able to build such higher level functionality, you'd need some underlying autonomic network infrastructure. And that's pretty much what was started to be forked off into Anima in the founding of Anima. And on top of that, I think there is the recognition that you need to have something which people have started to call intent-based network management. So that would be sitting on top of the whole system. Next slide. So yeah, so in May 21, we did finish our charter round 1 with RFC editor. This is the list of the documents. They're all about this autonomic network infrastructure, which constitutes primarily of 3 components. One is the secure bootstrap. The second one is the in-band secured network connectivity, and the third one is the generic reusable signaling between any higher layer components, like what we call these autonomic service agents, so any higher layer automation. Next slide.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
I couldn't get it to click for some reason.
Right. I'm not going to go into a lot of details. This is kind of our standard architecture overview. After Anima started, there was more and more concern, of course, also about do we really want to have fully autonomic networks? Don't we have a good approach also with the SDN network? So we started to explain how what we're building, especially with the ANI, can be very perfectly be an infrastructure on the bottom below, and improving SDN networks to that extent. We started to explain the relationship between the autonomic networking infrastructure and then any centralized or decentralized existing solutions like SDN controllers, orchestrator, and so on. There is also one of the documents that I wrote, the 8368, is going into details of that benefits of the ANI for existing networks. Next slide. So I think what's a lot more instructive is trying to understand what actually the operator experience is when you have an ANI network, and that's what basically this slide tries to explain. So you're starting out in day one to just physically plugging together and powering on, let's say, that topology of routers and switches to form a network. Somewhere you may have a control station where actually somebody sits that has a clue. Certainly not in the location where all the devices are located, which may be branches or points of presence across a campus or a country. So basically all these devices without the ANI would just have power but do nothing because they're not configured. So when they actually have the ANI, what happens is that all of these devices will automatically get enrolled by our bootstrap component, Brewski, with X509 domain certificates. And then the autonomic control plane will establish a virtual in-band overlay network. If you've heard things like VRF Lite, so it's really a VRF on every router, hop by hop secured with IPsec from the domain certificate with its credentials, running IPv6 with Ripple routing protocol. So that's all done automatically, autonomously, without any touch. So basically, as soon as the devices are connected, and the ANI starts up, you will end up with the network operation center having IPv6 connectivity to the network, to every device, and any further orchestration, configuration or so can be done from the NOC securely, remotely into all of these devices. And as you know, these three red markers here indicate you cannot connect to that network an unauthorized device. You cannot connect user devices because no user traffic is flowing, and you cannot spoof any of the OEM traffic that goes through the ACP because that's all hop by hop secured with encryption authentication. Now, after that day one, you know, as I said, you can start configuring everything, and that's of course also a benefit of the ANI that persists through the life cycle. So first of all, certificate renewal, one of these big pain points in the security underlay of infrastructures, is fully automated and can also be distributed. So registrars, CAs are very easy to put up distributed through the network in many places, so that you don't have single points of failures. And the ACP by itself also overcomes the big issues of shooting yourself in the foot with a wrong manual configuration or SDN misconfiguration. So when I was finalizing the ACP document early in the year, there was a very good, fun instance of one of these, you know, where the Federal Communication Consortium was publishing analysis of big network failures, and so I put a reference into that, where an operator had been fined, I think, 10 million or more dollar, because they failed to operate, you know, the 9/11 service. And if you look at the details of that, that's exactly because, you know, people were doing to do remote network management and they couldn't get to the routers anymore because they disconnected themselves through misconfiguration. So that is, you know, really a key important benefit that the ANI would give. Yeah, so that's basically, you know, the operator experience. Next slide. So the most convoluted and complex thing, of course, is how do you get yourself bootstrapped? You know, coming from Germany, I had to put the Münchhausen picture into it on the left-hand side. So on the right-hand side is basically simple explanation of how an actual operator experience would be in terms of what do I need to get the network started. And you really need one seed router, which is shown here, and a very simple configuration on that one. Let's assume that seed router can also be a private PKI certificate authority. You would pretty much only, you know, configure the router to be the domain registrar, give it a name, right, so that it becomes a unique network, that the domain name is put into all the certificates. You may have, you know, a good old notebook to do, you know, CLI configuration at minimum. You can connect that to the seed router unprotected, so that you get access later on to that secured network without having, you know, any new strange software on your management NOC network. And then there is one very interesting new component that we brought into the security architecture, which is called the manufacturer authorized signing authority, which is from the vendors of the network equipment node in the internet that provides the security for the bootstrap. So, you know, minimum configuration, one very cool, interesting new security component in the internet. And that's basically as much as you need to do to actually create that operational experience from the prior slide. So how does it work? Next slide. So the, you know, all the protocol and the script on how this works is fairly complicated. So it's a lot easier to just, you know, talk about the cast of the things that are involved here, and hopefully that's easy enough to show in an overview presentation. So the central point is really the domain registrar, which is a, you know, an enhanced PKI registrar, and it basically has to talk to you know, a couple of other instances. So primarily the devices in the network, we're calling them pledges. They need to get enrolled. They may not have any IP addressing or any other connectivity, you know, network reachability. So we have proxies that basically are automatically enabled in the ANI. So as soon as you connect a new device to an already ANI running device, the proxy functionality runs and helps the pledge to get connectivity to the domain registrar. So that's the front end. What do we need on the back end? Well, we need a certificate authority. We need that MASA. The MASA is delivering a new electronic component, you know, electronic artifact called the voucher, which beside the certificates is helping the pledge to believe that this network is one it should trust and get enrolled into. And the only, you know, original trust that a device has is with its manufacturer. So that's basically why we designed it. We may need a domain admission controller that basically says which devices are allowed, you know, to be enrolled into the network. And of course, we need address management because the certificate also include the addressing information. So every device has through its certificate a stable address that doesn't change through its life cycle. It's kind of a name for the device in the ANI. And there is not only fun in this, but, you know, this is actually the domain registrar. That's a picture of me when I was doing, you know, prototyping and, you know, pre-standard development. So all of this can be done manually. Of course, we do like our protocols, but the whole mechanism really is an abstract architecture. There are multiple different protocols to do it. Brewski is our Anima protocol. There is also netconf zero touch, which has a subset of this, but pretty much relies on the same basic bootstraps enrollment architecture. It can support MASA, voucher, and so on. It's just not that completely integrated as we can do in Anima, but protocols come and go. The system itself, I think, is very universal. Next slide. So yeah, so we also have these slides that are, you know, on the geek commentary go into red, which is explaining how it goes into detail. That is left for self-study. Next slide. Yeah, this is the the bootstrap, also the sequence of the messages. So good reference if you want to read up on the secure bootstrap, how this extension of the PKI bootstrap architecture works. So that is quite involved, and we are starting to have a lot of variations and extensions to that as well ongoing in Anima. Next slide. Right. So where are we now? So we have in end of 19 we added our second charter, because that's when we had finished our working group documents and went into ISG. So also ANI enhancement. The intent stuff, we tried to figure out what to do with intent for 5 years in Anima, gave up. I pushed it back to NMRG when we had one of our NMRG site meetings. They've actually been doing really good initial work on that, creating taxonomy and explanations of that. So if you're interested in, the language for intent of network automation, go to NMRG. The Bootstrap sees quite a wide proliferation and adoption across the IETF and the industry. We had an hackathon. It's actually relatively little code to write on top of existing PKI tool chains, but of course, it's sensitive code because it's security critical. And I'm actually getting confused as a working group chair about way too many different protocol preferences different parts of the industry have. So that's a fun exercise to keep that all together. And trying to make sure that everything maps to the common framework and common security behavior. So yeah, so there are two, I think, key things that you can listen on Thursday Anima meeting. Basically, the cloud-connected registrar and then constrained version of this for IoT networks. The ACP itself, that connectivity hasn't seen not that much movement yet, maybe logical because the Bootstrap goes first. There, of course, productized pre-standard industry implementations, but it is also in existing routers and switches fairly complicated to implement correctly. And I think it would become a lot better once we see more and more of virtualized software infrastructures and network devices where these things can be easier added. Yeah, and of course there are various prototype implementations, also open source there. Next slide. Yeah, so this is the landscape for middle management like myself, working group chair, trying to figure out where in IETF and elsewhere in the industry there are also aspects of the Brewski bootstrap being done. I can try to answer questions about these as necessary, but I certainly wouldn't want to, show you that, explain that landscape up front here. Next slide. Yeah, so circling back. So we've got ongoing work in NMRG for ANI. We've pretty much done a hopefully good job on for intent. We've hopefully done a good job on the ANI that's going on, which basically leaves the middle block, the automation of actual any type of security and network automation, the ASA as we call them. Up for grasps, and so we're looking for input and ideas and work in this area. And we've seen over the past 5 years, and always pushed back off that because of our charter, a lot of interesting architecture and proposals. And what I've been trying to educate people is that we're actually in ops. So the ops area is really meant to be very pragmatic. So we're also very much looking into ideas of what can be done short term and adopted, as opposed to fully the self-driving network, as people also have to come to name network automation. Next slide. Yeah, so and to that end, our ideas as the contributors to Anima started from very pragmatic considerations, right? So security being really one of the starting point that we wanted to automate more with ASAs. And you can think about two levels, right? There's the end-to-end security with TLS and Quick, which of course is also used in the network management itself and by application. They very often do not use strong automatically renewed and flexible PKI certificates, but just TLS with username and password, and web PKI with its problematic trust anchors. So always when I ask why don't you use real certificates, operators told me it's difficult to deploy. And of course, ANI certificates are not only for the ANI itself, right? They can perfectly well be reused for any other purposes in the network. And then you can leverage the ANI infrastructure to enroll and renew these certificates. And one of the interesting parts, of course, would be how to look into more authorization role information to be put automated into these certificates so that they can serve further purposes. Next slide. So for many of us that started Anima coming from really more network infrastructure management, there is obviously also the issue that a lot of important protocols that are being deployed in networks for the infrastructure itself don't have security, or if they have security, it's very hard to operationalize them, right? So, and there's a list: NTP, DNS, MTP, SMTP, MACsec, IPFix. So that range goes very wide. Routing protocols, of course, being one of those really complex issues where the IETF has tried to create a standardized routing security architecture that really didn't see a lot of adoption. So we still have 10, 20 year-old security models for routing protocols. And so that is something we could really do very nicely and easy automate with the scripts that are built on top of the APIs of the ANI, right? So Python, Tickle, it's very easy, for example, just to negotiate through the ANI with our signaling protocol securely, discover a neighbor, and then, for example, simply negotiate session keys. All of that negotiation would be protected by the ANI. So very easy to do. All the underlying, connectivity and security issues have been removed, which otherwise any security automation would have to reinvent for every protocol by themselves. And I've seen many of these, being done in the past. Next slide. Right, so and this is the end slide, right? So this is the marketing, right? As I said, there's often the past few years people talked about self-driving networks, and in reality, the self-driving networks that we have are being driven by a lot of automation in central location, right? So someone has to either be or program the SDN controller orchestrator. You have to have roles of developer, analyst, operator, security expert, and we really like to create the infrastructure through Anima that can really decentralize, distribute a lot of those aspects. Leveraging the knowledge and things that we have on the centralized side, but making these things a lot more resilient against central failures and better self-adopting. And I think that's it. Next slide. Yep. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for?
I'll jump in a little bit. So this doesn't seem to have, I guess, any kind of security regime in your network is doable. I didn't see anything that would limit it. So if you had a software-defined perimeter, that would probably seem to be okay. It looks a little bit like I'm going to route everything through that trusted router, but I assume there's an understanding of kind of link local versus non-link local in the overall model. Is that roughly correct?
So no, I mean, as far as any application, running from central location or on ASA, they only need to think about global IPv6 addresses. That's all automatically set up. Or using ULA, you'd never have to care about link local. That's all handled by the ANI. So the ANI itself, for its hop-by-hop secure tunnels, IPsec tunnels or so, that uses link local because obviously we don't want to invent and allocate any, global addresses when it's not needed. But when you write ASA, you never have to think about that. You would have the signaling protocol grasp, which through the API would give you local discovery or network-wide discovery of anything you're looking for or announcement thereof.
I guess, I mean, I was thinking from the bootstrap and the ANI type level and trying to understand what becomes my area of responsibility from a security point of view and how I make sense of that with this kind of enrollment system. And
So,
then
right. Mhm.
from a Sacm point of view, that would mean what's my area of observability? What do I really want to pay attention to?
So right now, Anima has a very simple, domain concept, right? Which basically means everybody in the domain trusts each other, so that we can, even in the absence of connectivity to central location, just plug together and have secure connectivity between any pair or group subset of the devices that are admitted into that domain during the bootstrap, right? So that basically means it's just a big, nice, happy family in a domain. Everybody trusts everybody else. And that is the domain that you need to think of. And typically that would be an enterprise network, an IoT network, even a service provider network. And, anything that isn't part of that, like any user device that you connect to it, that simply, would be, connecting to the network through any of the pre-existing configuration or things that you can set up, but wouldn't be able to access the ANI itself.
So that trust is, you have trust for comms, not necessarily that you could use that to build further trust, but that the trust you just described is a secure communication trust at that, right? That's the building block.
Yes, that's the lowest. I mean, we had to start really from the bottom, because otherwise we're always building, overlay solutions, and they always struggle to find deployment because the bottom isn't worked out. There is no standard to get you really bootstrapped up and have, common communications that is secure and reliable. Yeah.
That was kind of my question. I'm good. Thanks.
Michael?
Is that working?
Yes.
I just wanted to add to Krista's question or answer to that. There's a number of groups, including Fairhair, for instance, thread, that are using Brewski to do application layer enrollment, and actually are not using it for comms enrollment. They have another method. And then there are other groups that are doing multiple certificate enrollments once they have their trusted their EST session. How that exactly will play out is a question outside of the IETF a little bit. But essentially, you say it's for comms, but it's for management, right? We are building an ACP, and once you've done that, you then know how to trust the manager. And so now if you want to add additional credentials, you can do that with Yang RPC or SNMP or a CLI or whatever you want. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. Thanks for the clarification.
We started, very early on. It was all a monolithic building block in terms of, we want to have ANI as a single block, and then very quickly we try to steer so that we have a lot of reusable components. I think we're seeing that primarily now with Brewski, where we see a lot of variations, and Brewski being used in networks that don't have anything else of the Anima components, but all the components are pretty much built that you can do variations, deviations, and so, as Michael said, also apply it to different layers of the problem space, like certificates for applications, as opposed to the OEM infrastructure, as I think we call it typically.
Okay. Are there any other questions? I guess I just had a really quick one for you. I was wondering if you had specific asks from the Sacm working group, or this was primarily for information. mean, what
Yeah,
would
so
you
I
like
think,
us to do?
my ask would really be, to invite somebody for coffee and sit down physically in person and understand Sacm a little bit better, because I haven't followed up in the past few years. But, given how we're virtual, that's pretty difficult. So hopefully we'll see each other in person fairly soon. So talk about the next steps, because I think from my end, it's rather a big question mark for me what would be, possible interaction and collaboration on that side, other than Sacm members being interested in the anima work and simply doing that through anima itself. But beyond that, I have just a big question mark.
Okay. Well, thank you for providing that. That was very useful. Nobody else has anything on that. Folks can follow up on the anima mailing list, as well as the Sacm mailing list. That would be great.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, Adam? Sorry, go ahead. I just glanced over and now I see you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say I think it's probably a good idea if we get maybe some of the architecture crew to sit down with you and kind of just share notes on a deeper basis. It may not be in person. We're probably going to have to do Zoom, WebEx, or something like that. But I think that could be useful potentially, and just to spend 30, 45 minutes, something like that, to learn more about what each side is doing, because I think there might be applications for what you've done in the Sacm architecture, and then there might be ways the Sacm architecture might be able to leverage or assist what you're trying to do also. And so maybe, and that's really all I wanted to say. That was it. I think it's good to get
Definitely.
together.
So let me check my schedule for the week, and I can ping you on email, and maybe there is a time in gather.town or so to have a chat.
You'll have to deal with Bill, I think. Maybe Bill, you can get together with him this week, because you're kind of in the office. I'm actually on PTO this week.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so if Bill, if you and Adam and Torlis can, I know Adam, you said you're on PTO this week, but if it doesn't happen this week, maybe another week. If the three of you can coordinate and have a conversation, that would be great. All right, so that actually brings us to our final agenda item, which is our way ahead, and this is actually pretty straightforward. We have one milestone in our charter right now that's open, and that's the Sacm architecture. I told you all I looked at this earlier today, and then I forgot what it said. Next steps. We have not been doing virtual interims. I think Adam, you and Bill and your group working on that have been making good progress from that perspective. Given that, so basically, the direction from our area director, who can't be here today, I mean, he's in another session at the moment, was to figure out where we were with architecture. And, he's still, in his mind, has it that we will finish the architecture and then close the working group, unless something really compelling comes to the fore, along with a list of energized volunteers to work on it. So we are in end of July now. The next IETF meeting is November. Do we want to try for a virtual interim, or do you think we could continue with the progress we're making like we are? August, September, October. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I think I think we're making good progress, and we can accomplish things on list and schedule things that way. And if there's meetings to have, I don't necessarily think they need to be official virtual interims, but I guess if we need one, we can always reach out. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to schedule meetings that we don't necessarily need. Michael, you're in the queue.
Yeah, I was basically just going to say the same thing Bill did. If we're allowed to do ad hoc and just use the mailing list to coordinate with those who have shown interest in participating, whether it's on the pay side or through the Sacm architecture draft, just writing it specifically, then I think ad hoc is great.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. Just sort of report back occasionally, and also so we won't plan on having a virtual interim between now and then unless something changes. Now in November, but I would like to remind all of the working group members to please review you get notifications every time a draft is posted. So feel free to look at the changes and make any comments along the way. Because Adam and Bill and Michael and the rest of them are working, outside of this, feel free to comment. With that, we're at the end of the agenda. I probably should have scheduled a 1-hour meeting instead of a 2-hour meeting, so my apologies to the Secretariat and the leadership who struggle with scheduling for these. Do we have anything else for today? Okay. With that, oh wait, I see some comment. Oh, thanks everyone. Thank you. With that, I think we can call it a day. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you virtually or in person at some point.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Everybody, I hope to see you soon. And actually hugging and seeing you soon. Bye.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, not this, but
Sentiment needs to be spoken out loud once.
Yeah.